Attempts at making a video presentation here of some work I did on containers. A lot of these are some of these are creations by other players. Some of them are mock-ups. I did my concepts, and so I'll give you a little tour here. Here we have first the ZeroG module. One of the nice things about the ZeroG module is it's got the docking pads or landing gear on all 6 sides, allowing me to, in this case, let's turn on my little pack here, so we can see that there's actually a wall behind here. So the container on top, although small vessels can't dock to each other currently in the game, since I can dock it to the wall, this allows me to stack them on top of each other. And this was the test concept here, that if you could stack them on top of each other and actually have them docked to the wall behind, you would create the illusion that they're stacked, that it's a stack of them, and yet still have the docked effect going on. Now on top of this ZeroG container here is a potential remake of one of my blueprints on the workshop that looks nothing like this. However, the blueprint on the workshop I put together as a concept demonstration what you could do for a container for a small vessel, essentially the smallest size. I could make it have 16K SU and still give it a cockpit, thrusters in all 6 directions, an RCS, generator, fuel tank, very compact design. But later on, as I come to understand mass and volume better, that vessel would not have the ability to lift itself off if it was full of promethium in the game. So it would be pretty much grounded in 1G with a full capacity. So in this case, and among other things, it was a concept of that build. It really didn't have any fit into my collections, any place to really belong or fit. So I was building a complete remake of it based off of the ZeroG module. It will be dividing up, for CPU purposes, it would be dividing up some of its storage in between a container controller with a bunch of CE and then also some smaller box. So it would still have the 16K SU total, it just wouldn't be all in one container. And then I'm using some larger jets inside the hull there to give it the necessary thrust that it could potentially not only lift the full hold in 1G, but if I'd done my math right, also in 2 times standard gravity as well. However, as I'm modeling after the ZeroG module, as I was lining it up here, a quick reminder that sometimes things, the numbers look right in your head, even though they're wrong. Mocking them up and putting them so they're visually, you can see them, sometimes reveals some of the flaws. In this case, my flaw is I am 2 blocks too wide. So I've added an extra meter to its width. I'm considering options about how to fix that. I have not yet decided what I'm doing. But yeah, that a good chance I'm gonna have to I feel like I have to fix that up to get this. Now this next grouping here, these are based off the dimensions in a thread in the forums. People talking about intermodal containers, and I got carried away with these stacking containers, thinking of the transport ships on the ocean, and doing a sci-fi version of those, which personally myself I'm probably going to do as some sort of representation of that. Not nearly the scale of a real container ship, especially since throwing that many containers on a vessel would probably really bog down the game. Horrible. Sometimes this area itself, just with what I've got here, can be a little drag on the computer. I'm hoping the recording will turn out all right, but just be warned, I may occasionally have some problems just because this area is hard for my computer with all these containers here. This I believe they were trying to get 1/2 the dimensions and each width, length, and height of the zero-G module when they were doing their math there. I think they were a little off on their math. At least that's what I think they were trying to achieve, is a smaller representation of the zero-G module. These are not precise. The zero-G module is to the 1/2 meter height, so it's 4.5 meters high, 7.5 meters wide, and about 30.5. Well, the container itself is 29.5 meters deep. So with those 0.5 meters in there, the game doesn't really divide that nicely. So I approximated here, but that's what the 1/8 is. Basically, the thing is, if you divide each of those dimensions in half, you end up with 1/8. The 1/16, I just divided the 1/8 in half. And so the idea is I was messing around with stacking containers. Again, that illusion of the container ship stuff with the stacks container. Not necessarily about the different modes. Intermodal actually refers to, as I'm going here and giving you a little view of these things, intermodal refers to different modes of transportation. That same container can be transported by ship, by train, or throw some out on a set of wheels and by your semi. So you're, in this case, these are actually, they are all docked. They either docked to that far wall or docked, these 1/16 docked to the ground. Of course, the ones along in the back are docked to the wall back there. This I was doing, again, as I said, the zero-G module, the 4.5 meter height, doesn't divide nicely. So in this case, these are the full 4.5 meters height. I'm just dividing the width and the depth. So you have the 1/4, so that would be 1/2 the width, 1/2 the depth, approximately. As I said, again, that 0.5 just doesn't divide nicely in the game. And the 1/8 would be the 1/4 divided in half. In the case of the 1/4, it does divide nicely in half. So the reason this one isn't lined up correctly with the others is because, in this case, the where I parked it, in order to dock it to anything, I had to slide it to the wall, so it could then dock to the wall, because there is that other layer behind these where, so in other words, it can't dock to the wall behind because there is already a vessel behind there. So, and since small vessels, again, don't dock to small vessels, that was a no-go. So those are there. I'm pretty sure I will, unless I'm slacking, I will include a link to the zero-G module in the posting of this video. I'm going to walk down here to the other end. There is another player container. There's actually 2 player containers down here. One is a private container, so they let me have a copy of it. And the discussion of the thread, they had shown a picture of it, and then I talked about trying to do a mock-up of that container. There's my mock-up. So if you look here, you'll notice my mock-up is 1 block longer. So my estimation off of their pictures and the information there was off a little bit, but yeah. Over here we have the cargo container, and this is by, let's see, I linked it up here, ZeroG, and so his cargo, well, their cargo container over there, and so they do not dock to they only have the docking pads underneath by default. So that one I did modify a little bit so it can dock to the wall. This is just a demonstration I was doing here. Here's some of my mock-ups. They are just empty shells, this stuff. And that one there is a 3.5 by 3.5 cross section. The other one, in the other direction, is a 2.5 by 2.5 cross section. And then there's a this stuff. But I will deal with those another time. Just wanted to give you a quick picture of that. Here we can see some of the containers more lined out here in the comparison to each other to give the idea of the scale of these. And a demonstration that the ZeroG module is not exactly a small container. There is a small capital vessel that I've been working on in the background there, and you can see the ZeroG container is fairly good sized. This stuff. These here, I might as well give you just a moment on these. What I was toying with. My preference was probably going to be I may change my mind, but I'm thinking I'll go with the 3.5 by 3.5 meter cross section. That's 7 the small blocks by 7 the small blocks for the width and height. The depth here is on this one is a 7.5. I think what I'll officially go with myself is probably an 8.5 meter depth. That's what I'm looking at this time. This here is a 2.5 by 2.5 meter by a, what was it? I want to say I did a 6 meter, 6 meter depth on that. That one is essentially 2 of those in length. That one is 2 of the next size down wide. So they're basically 2 of them placed. In fact, that's what I did as a copy and paste. I took one of those, copied the whole thing, pasted a copy of it right next to each other, and then basically merged the 2 by removing the parts in between and making it one. This essentially is 2 of those blocks, 2 of them stacked up on top of each other. This again is 2 of them stacked back to back like that one is, and then again 2 side by side. This I did the same thing as you're going over here with a 3.5 cross section, but in this case this one, yes, I did that, but then I didn't choose 2 side by side because it was getting large. I was running out of space, because they're bigger size. I ran out of space on my other side of the wall there, and I didn't want to go further necessarily. Okay, and so here's my quick tour of a bunch of containers. As I said, the discussion that triggered this off was actually a discussion about intermodal. I totally missed the mark. I got focused on the container ships and stacking containers and creating the illusion of that would be necessary for a container ship, a massive container ship. Which again, and considering where I'm planning to go, the good chance is that since I plan to build some container ships, these here will probably actually suit what I'm looking for. And the 3.5 meter here, I may do it as dull as these without extensive details, but the idea being is that there is enough space in that cross section that you can build a decent container and then use the outer layer for someone to customize and make it their own. As I said, these are all just basically, they're quick mock-ups. I didn't want to waste a whole lot of time on these. And so they're just a hollow shell. There's really nothing in here. At some future point, I will make my actual containers. Part of the reason I like those bigger ones there, as it scales up, is this one I could actually, with that being 7 meters, so 2 of these 3.5 meters tall, so 7 meters tall, that's 14 blocks. I could put a full XXL jet in the height of that, or the width, or in my case I'm probably more likely to go with just the XL jet, so that I can do some texture and hull around it, and not have it be so blatantly obvious. Plenty obvious, but not so blatant. So the idea is, I like that because it gives me more space to work with and stuff. So yeah, that was a quick tour of this. As I think this here was a little sidetracked for myself, but I think those there on the end for what I'm really looking for may be quite suitable. And while I'm at it, based on some of the last in the discussion in the thread about a possible standard for the intermodal container, the last one I saw entered in there, Someone gave some dimensions in their proposal, and that I should, if I build my container transports, they should still be able to haul plenty of those containers. It would no big deal, especially if I'm putting on their beasts like some of those things down there. Yeah, putting us a more suitable container for intermodal transport between small vessels, hover vessels, and capital vessels, and storage at bases. Yeah, should be fairly easy for me to pull off on my container transports. So, well, hope you enjoyed this little quick tour. As I said, these things are just empty shells. There's really nothing much to show off. I could suppose I could show you off, show off a little bit of the ZeroG module, that one, and there's the one on the one on this side. They have their little. There's a reason it's private. It's their little secrets to its layout, and so I'll just leave that as it is. This one here, I want to say that I pulled in one of the older models, but they do have an A9 version of it. On the exterior, pretty much looks the same. I didn't pull one in here. I am subscribed to it, the A9 version. I just pulled the wrong version, but for the most part, they look very similar. If I were to stick them two side by side, the creator, they may know the differences and be able to pick it out visually with them side by side. Myself, I don't think I'm going to. So yeah, it's going to look pretty much it's the dimensions are the same. Stuff. The ZeroG module. Why don't I give you a quick tour of this? Like their sensor work on the door there, and this is this is part of the reason I was rebuilding mine into an actual A9 compliant mass volume with a container controller, because even at the time that this was released, the ZeroG module, it was before mass volume, and so it looks like it's ready for additional containers to just be added in here and stuff. But it was even at the time there was another container vessel I found of the same width, same height, almost the same depth if you don't account for that these are the ramps add essentially 2 meters on this side, 2 meters on the other side, so total 4 meters additional onto it. But other than that, the other vessel I found was the same size, just chock full of those cargo boxes inside. So it was going to hold a lot more, but now that we have mass and volume, it really once you started filling it up, it wouldn't operate very well at all. So that's part of the reason I was building my white container ship that we saw at the beginning on the other side, was that I'd have something that would fit the same space essentially. I do have the side ramps, which its dimensions will be a little different, but the ramps usually don't count as far as major collisions when you're navigating and piloting your vessel. So yeah, that was going to be essentially the compatible container. I just need to correct my mistake that I discovered when I lined them up and really got a good look at them. Because just floating out in space, I didn't catch the difference, but lining them up stacked against a wall, where then the difference in width really became apparent. So, well, enjoy. Have a good day.